Between the efforts we have chosen and the sacrifices we have suffered, this is the question that will be asked to each of the French. This is why I would like, during the coming weeks, to discuss with you on this subject, to share with you what we call the contracts, that is to say, the need that is before us, that weighs on our shoulders and that we cannot put aside. All those responsible are going on holiday, well-deserved, which I will not do, because the days that we will live during these weeks of August and the beginning of September, these days are absolutely crucial. This is the moment when everything will be at stake. As you know, the government has proposed a diagnosis, saying that it was the gravity of the difficulties, and we will come back to it day after day. And the government has proposed a plan to say that it cannot go on like this. There are efforts to be made. These efforts are bearable by a country that decides to take back its destiny and not to let it flow. But if these efforts are refused, then we will live moments that are moments that many countries around us have lived and that will require, by force, sacrifices that will be much more important than the efforts that we have to make today. Why? Because our country is in a moment that is terribly difficult for the whole planet, with the great empires that decide those who have the power, who decide to impose their vision on others. This often happens with China, industrial and commercial, but these are the United States. Within these empires, the European Union, which has difficulties to speak of a single voice, as long as it does not speak of a single voice, it will not be heard. And France, which shows signs that it is a country with a lot of resources. Yesterday, the growth figures were published for the second quarter of 2025, and France is behaving as well and better than its main neighbors. So we should have a more smiling perspective for the future. But we are threatened by an evil to which we will not escape if we are not courageous. This evil, you know it in all your families, it is overindebtedness. When we are forced to borrow, not to buy a house, not to buy an apartment, not to buy a house, not to buy a house, not to buy a car, but simply to pay the everyday costs. When we are forced to borrow and we can no longer repay without going to the bank every month to ask for an additional loan when you are paid more and more. This is called over-indebtedness. Families know it, associations know it, companies know it, and it is an evil that threatens your survival. If someone thinks I am wrong when I say this, let him express himself. For the moment, I have not heard anyone say that this danger does not exist. And this danger exists because we have allowed it to develop through 50 years of imbalance. The last balanced budget in France was presented, remember, in 1974. It is to say to what extent we are facing an accumulation of drift or acceptance of drift, and the efforts are to be made today. There is no tomorrow. We cannot postpone to tomorrow. When we have reached the sum of debts of 3,400 billion euros, it is a sum that cannot be represented. But there is a figure that we can keep in mind. It is that every second of every day and every night, France's debt increases by 5,000 euros. And if we are not caught by a figure of this order, then we cannot understand the risk and the threat from one year to the next in 2026 compared to 2025. The burden of the interests of the debt, the annuity of the debt, increases by 8 billion. And once we have said that, and we know that the following year, in 2027, it will not be 8 billion more than this year, it will be 10 billion. To arrive in 2029, if we do nothing, to 100 billion, 100,000 million euros in debt. If we do not see this, and if we do not decide to recover, then we are irresponsible in front of our children, which I refuse not only by principle, but because it is completely immoral. I would simply like that we decide that this generation, we in 2025, in 2026, in 2027, we are the generation that says, well, we will accept the necessary efforts to get out of this situation. If we do not accept them, and it depends, I try to look you in the eyes, it depends on each and every one of you. If these efforts together, we do not accept them, we can improve, rebalance. I am open to all proposals. But if we do not accept the dimension of this effort, then I tell you, whatever the governments that will follow, we will be forced to do it by the fact that we will no longer find lenders. Our neighbors have cut in pensions, less than 30% of pensions for Greece, less than 10% for Spain, and have lowered the salaries of public services by 10%. These are the consequences of overindebtedness. The purpose of this direct communication that I propose to you is that you yourself forge your own opinion. Again, if someone thinks the opposite of what I say, he has the duty to say it and defend it in front of the French. My certainty is that there is no other way than this bearable effort and chosen. We are a people that has risen from many things. We are quite capable of overcoming this obstacle. But it is now that it is played, and it is you who will decide on it. It corresponds to the idea that I make of politics. I admit that I am quite often a minority in the idea that I make of politics, but it is not a test of strength between the powers and the French. We are here because it is the situation to which the French must face, and we are here to do it with them. My conviction is that we cannot make such important, profound, and well-done changes without the French, never without the French. This is the purpose of this exchange and the purpose of the work that I wish to conduct during the summer with you, to share the observation of the situation. We cannot let things go without doing anything and without saying anything. It is a decision to be made, and it is you who will make it. Thank you all.